The first thing I need to do is talk about Dr. Hall. John Hall has been our guest. He's the author of A New Breed. He is an anesthesiologist in Texas. He's fairly esteemed in the medical profession. He went through an extraordinary experience, which he documents in A New Breed. I have a link to that on the site. And it just gives a personal experience. And really what he's doing in this book is what we all need to be doing. Anyone who is stalked or targeted in any way needs to be documenting all of these things. So he documented it in a book. And I have something to say about that when we get them on. And then Dr. Robert Duncan holds degrees from Harvard and Dartmouth and many other universities. His expertise is directed energy, neurological weapons, psychological information warfare. His movie is called The Enemy Within, Psychic Warfare. And I haven't seen this book, but he has another book called Hacking the Human Mind, I believe. He is able to discuss directed energy, neurological weapons. He's done work in the medical profession, the medical field, and actually really use of electronics in a positive way in keeping doctors out of harm's way so they can treat people that are wounded in the field. But I mean, just a really fascinating, he knows all about MK Ultra, when it began, the whole history of this. I guess he's kind of the go-to guy when you want to understand the electronic warfare aspect of all this. Now, let me see who I've got on the air. If all goes well, I'll have both of our guests here, Dr. John Hall and Dr. Robert Duncan. Are you there, both of you? Hello.
Yes, Dr. Robert Duncan's here.
Okay. Well, nice to hear you. I've just heard a lot of interviews with you, and we don't have Dr. John Hall there. Is that correct? So I guess let's see if we can go ahead and fix that. I'm going to have to call him live again. I thought we had him on the phone. So let me just go ahead and this is what happens. So WWCR, this is what happens when you're putting out this kind of information. This is very popular among Clear Channel. That's why I'm on Clear Channel right now. Okay, it looks like he's calling in, and I'm going to add to conference. Hello, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, Zeph, how's it going?
Oh, Dr. John. Okay, Dr. John Hall, Dr. Robert Duncan. Okay, these are the two heavyweights in this the most horrifying topic of all time. You know, electronic harassment, mind control. And to start off with, a lot of people have heard you. I've heard your interview with Alex Ansary on, Coast to Coast on, I'll just start with you, Dr. Robert Duncan. A lot of people know where all this came from, Operation Paperclip, the Nazis, the kind of technological background. But so much is going on today, and I've heard a lot of your stuff from a couple of years ago, but now that we've had the Jared Lee Loughner case, and I just want to ask you about this just right off the bat. I mean, is that potentially a programmed guy?
Oh, absolutely. It's surprising that he even mentioned mind control in his blurb on YouTube. But he very much fits the profile of a programmed assassin. And he was easily discredited in the news, as we saw, as someone who was crazy. And that will sort of explain away what he did. And the motives behind it, his individual motives are going to be different from his controllers' or handlers' motives. And we can only surmise that maybe they want to take away more power, gun rights from the citizens. Well, what do you have? You have more crazy people using guns to commit horrific crimes. You don't know what the political agenda might be, but he's certainly somebody who should be looked at closely as being programmed. He talks about neuro-linguistic programming, which is a form of brainwashing. And programming an assassin. And in the old days, Dr. Ewan Cameron, when he was conducting experiments for the CIA, he used two-track loops of really negative messaging while the patient was undergoing electroshock and sleep therapy and being given high doses of drugs. And he would try to program a person through this what's called neuro-linguistic programming. The Army uses it as well. And it's a field of study. You can study at MIT. And it's how to control the mind through repetitive statements.
That it's absolutely horrifying to have seen that. But I mean, we all knew that this guy. If you follow his history, he hadn't been really violent. He'd been weird. He'd been an oddball. He'd been definitely someone you could target as somebody weak or that would be able to do killing for somebody, or it could be just we don't know the motives. But I mean, obviously, of all the people in a population, he would stick out as somebody to mess with if you were in the business of controlling people.
Absolutely. And that's one commonality that you can find. We did about 650 interviews of targeted people. And one commonality is that they're usually easily discredited in public. And they stick out as an oddball of some sort. And so, yeah, he would be an easy target for them.
And then you got to wonder the motive, and, the federal judge is shot. But then, other people can be targeted who are not an oddball. Dr. John Hall, enter, please. And here you are. You were targeted, and and there's nothing that I don't think anything about you that would just signal a flag. Oh, come get this guy. He's easy, or he's manipulatable. Let's try it on him.
Well, not until I joined this fight, anyway. Once you start making noise about this technology and joining and combating this, then certainly, to some extent, you're looked at as an oddball for believing it, for one.
Right.
And especially in medical circles, as a physician, the take in the medical community right now is that, you shouldn't be, counseling these people as to being victims, but should be referring them to a psychiatrist for a diagnosis. And that's pretty much the pervasive thinking throughout most of the medical community. There's slowly more physicians coming around to see that there's a problem, and it's not necessarily mental illness now. But I do agree with Dr. Duncan in that most of the people that you see being victimized by this are already social outliers. They're already people that are maybe somewhat involved in the drug counterculture or have other factors in their lives that discredit them already before they ever mention a word about electronic harassment.
Okay, but case in point is your book, A New Breed. Now, I interviewed you when it came out, pretty much. And at that time, there were just a few reviews on it. But you could tell, there were people that were really relieved that you wrote the book, okay, for one. I, for one, was in that category. But then there's others there that would just give you, 1 star and call you and, basically try to defame you. Defamation, very big with these people. Defame you right on that Amazon site. And now I notice that because you hung in there, it's gone the other way, where you have a lot of really positive comments now. The public seems to be accepting your book.
Well, in my situation, it was actually my fiancée who was really more the victim.
Okay.
And we did identify the perpetrators in her case, and a lot of those first reviews were actually traced back to some of the perpetrators themselves. That definitely wanted the book discredited and wanted me discredited, and went to some great lengths to try to accomplish that, and luckily did not. But and the one good thing about Robert Duncan coming out with his book, Soul Catcher Volume 2, my book, I go over we're pretty much of the same mind on how the technology works. My book was more just a story from a credible person that, yes, this is going on. His book goes into detail on how it's done, and has really been a godsend for the victim community.
I'm kind of playing catch up here with everything. I need to get that book ASAP. Dr. Duncan, did you get harassed for writing that book?
No, I actually haven't. It's been very positive feedback.
Get that book.
It almost seems like more public a person is, more they will, stand back because they don't want it to be too obvious. But I haven't had any problems with the publication. And in your introduction, you said it was called Hacking the Human Mind. The title actually changed.
Okay.
It's called Project Soul Catcher. Secrets of Cyber and Cybernetic Warfare Revealed. And the reason that I called it cybernetics, and it's the field in psychophysics or neuropsychology in cybernetics comes from a Greek word meaning the art of steering. Cybernetics is about having a goal and taking action to achieve that goal. Knowing whether you have reached the goal requires feedback, a concept that comes from cybernetics. And that evolved into the Latin word for governor. And cybernetics as a process operating in nature has been around for a long time, but in society, we've heard it used first by Plato to refer to government. In modern times, the term cybernetics, there was a book written by Mr. Wiener called Cybernetics in 1948, a year after the formation of the CIA. Mm-hmm. His subtitle is important because it connects control systems with communication. And and he also points out in 1948 that both artificial systems and biological systems can have purpose, and this was a scary concept back then. So that's the idea behind cybernetics. Cyber has to do with cyber warfare techniques, hacking computers. Now, there's a kernel, and you can still find this paper in the military literature of the Air Force, that the mind has no firewall. And so the idea is that hacking into computer systems and hacking into human beings, individual minds or society's minds, the collective conscious, use the same techniques and trickery. So the book tries to cover all of those and get into details of some of the systems that are currently out there.
The first stalker that where I became aware of the stalking was through the Scientologists. They seem to be experts at that, and they're really into this whole cybernetics thing and the mind and manipulation of the mind as well.
They are, and it's. I tried to investigate them a little more thoroughly and did a sort of a comparative religion analysis of my own. But for some reason, in all the literature, the word CIA and Scientology seem to be used together, and so I don't.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Well, I'm just aware.
They've been infiltrated.
What I mean by that is that the whole gaslighting techniques, that were, like Stasi techniques, have been employed by the Scientologists, and I'll share an incident later. We have a question coming from the chat room. Is this type of programming or mind control? In this type of programming or mind control, can they overcome inhibitions in people, or is there some type of pre-programming or pre-screening required for it to work? I'm not sure I understand the question. You mean?
Yeah.
You mean can they use this so you overcome your inhibitions against your will? I think that would be a better question.
Okay, and that's the general question of hypnosis. Now, this is one of the CIA's most famous programs that was leaked during the Frank Church investigations in Congress was a remote hypnotic intracerebral control. So it's a weapon of detrimental hypnosis. And if you talk to some experts, they say under hypnosis, you cannot be forced to do anything that's against your very primitive programming, your morality, your ethics. But obviously they've gone past that. The whole point of some of the CIA programs were to create split personality assassins so that they can commit a crime or finish their mission and then be able to pass a polygraph, but they didn't do it. So yes, they can make you, can